We've pushed you over the edge, Chris.
On the dark side.
Play hard with these things. Luke Skywalker. I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows.
Well, welcome to Force Connect, the Friday night Star Wars live talk show, call-in, party-o-rama, whatever the hell it is that we do on this show on Friday nights. I am your host, Nick Mielke, and as you can see, it's just me tonight. Pete had some family obligations. Chris is under the weather, and you know what? We're going to do this thing anyhow. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to crash horribly like the Hindenburg of Star Wars, or if it's going to be the most fun we've ever had. I think it's going to be a good time. I'm excited to see people hanging out in the chat already. Chris is hanging out in the chat. Chris, I hope you get to feeling better. I see Jeff. I see Angry. I see Eric. Skywalker's Academy checked in for just a moment. Salutes to all of you. I will raise a glass to all of you in just a few minutes. But for now, happy Friday. How's everybody's week? We're going to lean a little bit on the chat tonight, helping me keep things going, help the conversation keep going. I think we're gonna have some fun. We're going to stick with the topic. I thought about, changing it up, doing some different things, but we are going to talk about here in just a little bit. I've got my idea of what I think the 11 Star Wars live action movies, what I think their comic book movie equivalent is. So we're going to go through my list. I want to hear from you in the chat as I make my picks, discuss, go back and forth. And then I'm pretty sure tonight we're definitely going to have some callers. We had a couple weeks off from callers. We're trying some new things with the call-ins, but tonight I need to talk to you. I need you to come along and rescue me and rescue your friends who are watching so that they don't entirely just have to listen to this hybridized Illinois Southern accent, whiskey-soaked nonsense that I'm going to throw your way. So that's kind of the shape of things tonight. I've got a couple of different things that I want to get to. Before we do anything else, before we get to our toast, it would not be Force Connect. It would not be a podcast if we were not, shilling things, which is a strong part of what we do. So the first thing I want to talk about is figuring out where my graphics went. Social media. Sometimes it's less social than it probably should be, or maybe it's more social than it should be. Either way, it's the gift and the curse that we all have, social media. You can find us on our social media. Honestly, the easiest thing to do, as we say every week, is go to theSSWnetwork.com. That's how you can find our Patreon, our Facebook, our social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. We have all of those things. We are in all of those places. We would love to interact with you there. I'll be fully transparent. I still primarily spend my time on Twitter. It does get worse every day. And until I find something that replaces it adequately, that's just kind of where I am, because I feel like that's still where most of us kind of are anyhow. So I do want you to check that out. And I would encourage you to check out our Patreon. We sent out some Patreon swag and merchandise to our patrons just, the other week. And we're excited to share those things, whether it's designs that Pete comes up with, whether it's ideas I come up with, and then I say, hey, Pete, make this into a thing, which he's great to do. we just go with it. We have all kinds of stuff. We want to send you things. We want you to be a part of when we record around the galaxy, which we have been a little bit lax on lately. And has a lot to do with the strike. Obviously, the writer's strike got resolved. We are thrilled about that. But the actors are still on strike. And not only the actors, but the folks that work on movies that are, the lower actors, not your Brad Pitts, your Ben Afflecks, those people, yes, they are on strike also, but it affects everyone. So until that is fully resolved, until everybody gets what they deserve, we are continuing to not cover struck material. So that has slowed down around the galaxy a little bit. It slowed down Potathon, which we are starting to pick up steam on getting ready for in anticipation of hopefully the strikes being over sooner rather than later. So lots of good stuff on deck, lots of stuff coming up. But if you go to the sswnetwork.com, you can check out all of those things, including our merch. There's a tab for merch. And if you go to that, you can find all the weird designs. So check all of those things out. I'm not going to keep just, pushing you into buying things from us into a dead horse because, well, I could and I would if you let me. So tonight I talked about we're going to do the comic book movie thing. We're going to kind of compare that. I do want to hear from all of you. We do have to have a toast tonight. And I mentioned this before. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago when I was on. I think I was out last week. It is the month of October. And there's something that happens in October. And this might actually be the perfect opportunity for me to do this when my co-hosts aren't here to have to deal with me. And deal with it with me. But there is a little event that takes place in October, and it's called Snoketoberfest. If anybody remembers this little golden guy right here, I'll let him stand on my microphone for just a second. This is the part where Chris leaves the chat. Chris even says, oh no. Yes, Chris, it's Snoketoberfest, and I feel like I would not be doing my duty if I didn't deliver our toast tonight in the form of a Snoketoberfest. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to add to the stage a happy little thing that I made. You can't have a timer. You can't have Snoketoberfest without a timer because here's what Snoketoberfest is, in case you didn't know. And I should probably start preparing. What you do is you take a beer, as one does. I'm really classy. This is Natural Light because, yes, I live in the South and sometimes forget I'm not still in college. You pour your beer, get it in there, in your pint glass. And what you're going to do is when it's time, over here, I'm going to drop this Snoke into this beer because it would just be Oktoberfest otherwise. And then I'm going to hit play on this video clip on here. And it is the iconic clip from Rise of Skywalker of the Emperor saying who Snoke is. And I have to drink this beer before that timer runs out. And that is how we Snoketoberfest. So if everybody's ready, I'm either going to die, spit this all over myself, or have some small... No, Woodsy, I will not toast the Alabama-Tennessee game as an Auburn fan. We're just going to give it a go. But this is me raising my glass to all of you tonight. Thank you for tuning in to what could be a disaster, what could be a car wreck. But we're going to Snoketober this thing. So Snoke's up. And here we go. Snoketoberfest, baby. Cheers to every one of you. That turned out better than I thought it would. Now, if I come back from this commercial break and I'm passed out in this chair, talk amongst yourselves. We'll be back. But it's Friday night. We're hanging out. We're having a good time. And I'm thankful that you are all here with me. So let's take a quick commercial break. And then when we get back from that, we will jump into Star Wars movies as comic book movies. What are their equals, their compatriots? How does that all go? So we will be back with more Force Connect right after this.
R2? Where are you? R2? R2? Huh? R2, you're on fire! R2-D2, you found a cigarette! Well, I don't think smoking is grown up at all. Because it's very dangerous. Smoking does dreadful things to your lungs and is very bad for your heart. Well, I know I don't have one, but humans do, and I think we should set a good example. Well done, R2. Oh, hello. You know smoking is bad for your health, and it isn't grown up at all. So please, don't smoke. R2, do you really think I don't have a heart?
Welcome back to Force Connect, the Friday night live hangout Star Wars talk show. I'm your host, Nick Mielke. As we said at the top of the show, Pete and Chris are out tonight, and I'm running solo. But I'm not running solo because I have all of my friends hanging out with me in the chat, and I'm excited you all are here, and I'm going to rely on you to be a heavy part of this conversation as we get ready to start into our topic for the night. I had my toast just a minute ago. Now I'm ready to settle into a more, traditional grown-up drink. I had a camera for this, and all of my internet stuff fell apart like 15 minutes before the show started, so I kind of had to rejigger. Because I was going to also introduce you to someone. I think if you have watched Around the Galaxy, Force Connect, Podcast of the Wills over the last couple of years, you know that we are nothing if not fond of droids, particularly specialty droids, whether it's, ATG3, R5 Drink More, who's hanging out over here over my shoulder. And we have a new droid to add to, our stable of whoever it is. And he's kind of gained popularity with a certain show that has just come out that we're not talking about. But you will see right over here. And like I said, I don't have my other camera, but over here we have Professor Hu Yang, Drinks Droid Esquire is what I have named him. And you can kind of see Professor Hu Yang hanging out. But what happens for good whiskey loving folks like myself is Professor Hu Yang pours my whiskey for me now. I don't have to do all the lazy human work of like picking up the bottle, pouring it in the thing. So whiskey on demand, thanks to Professor Hu Yang, Drinks Droid Esquire, and also our friends at Cabe's Oasis, Brian and Holly Fry, hooking me up with some excellent barware. So now I have my drink. Now I'm ready to go. And now I'm ready for us to dig into our topic tonight. So as I mentioned, let me get this on here so that we can see what's going on. Let's go with, we'll start out with this view for a minute. We are talking tonight about Star Wars movies and what are their comic book movie equivalents. Initially, when I came up with this idea, I thought about doing what are their Marvel movie equivalents, and Chris and I were going to do this show tonight. And he asked, could we expand it to comic book movies? Because I know Chris is not the biggest fan of the MCU. He is a DC guy. And in full disclosure, I grew up a DC guy as well. Superman was my original superhero. Batman, certainly, and, old Burt Ward Batman. Adam West and Burt Ward. Growing up with that TV show, the reruns, and then Batman 89 came out, and it was a revelation. So I grew up with the DC stuff and really didn't get into Marvel in a real general specific way until Iron Man came out. But of course, the MCU has, dominated movies for the last 10, 12 years and all of that. So originally the idea was what were the MCU equivalent movies of the 11 Star Wars movies, but we expanded it to comic books, and I'm glad we did because it gave me some other choices, and I actually ended up adding more DC and non-Marvel movies than I initially thought I would. So we're going to start in order. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to show you my choices. I want to hear from you in the chat, maybe what you think, whether you think my choice fits. I'll give you some reasons for it. Yes, Angry Tasty Cake says the DCU would have had a chance if they were good. So let's start out. Let's start with Phantom Menace. Let's blow this up a little bit bigger. My choice for what is the comic book movie equivalent for the Phantom Menace is Superman Returns, the Brandon Routh movie. I don't know how you that are watching in the chat feel about this particular movie. Here's why I picked this. Episode 1 came out in 1999. I went and saw it at the theater. It wasn't my jam right away. I didn't like it, but it grew on me. it became something that certainly as I aged, as I returned to it after a little bit of a break, I realized that I really do enjoy this movie. And Superman Returns was the same way. Having grown up with the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, like that was my whole childhood. That was Superman. So when we get Superman Returns, we get a new Superman. It was one of those things that just, it worked, but it didn't work for me right away. It took time. And even now, as we revisit it, and my wife, who's not a superhero movie person at all, this is one of her favorite superhero movies. It just clicked for her. So as I was thinking about this list, I thought, what was a movie? It didn't do it for me at first. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like Star Wars. It didn't feel like Superman. But over time, certainly as I matured and as I started to, get out of my young punk, it's not Star Wars mode, this was my choice. So for me, for episode 1, my comic book movie equivalent is Superman Returns. That was my choice. Next up, episode 2, of course. I like this, Woodsy. Superman saving and catching the falling plane is exactly how I want Superman to look on the big screen. And that's exactly right. And one of my favorite parts of that scene, he lands it in the middle of that baseball game. And the little effect of as that huge fuselage of that plane hit the baseball field, like it had the ripples of like the energy, going through it, because that's how physics work. Probably you would see like some windows breaking and some crap happening. So it was a good Superman movie. It's a better Superman movie than it gets credit for, much like The Phantom Menace, which also we knew who Superman was. We knew what Star Wars was, but they came back to us after a period of not having them. And it had a rough re-entry, but eventually over time, we get to, have something that we enjoy. So that's my first choice. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. For the very longest time, Attack of the Clones was my least favorite Star Wars movie, at least that I said that. Now I don't have a least favorite. I may have an 11th favorite, but I don't have a least favorite. So this was the movie that for a long time was just, it was the one that wore me out. And for a lot of reasons that are probably not valid, because again, I was a young punk at that point. So my equivalent, my comic book movie to go with this was Iron Man 2. Iron Man 1 was a revelation. We're going to talk about Iron Man 1, here in just a little bit. But Iron Man 2, when it came out, like, okay, yeah, it's fun. And we get Scarlett Johansson. We get, Eric Brown. Eric Brown is tracking with me right now. Iron Man 2 or 3, Attack of the Clones. And 2 or 3, either one could work, but I went with 2. Chaco agreeing with me. Chaco, I want to hear from you too. So when I throw the link in there, I hope you'll call in. I want to hear from all of you, but I'm excited to see Chaco in the chat. I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, and I know you have some thoughts that probably track with all of this. So Attack of the Clones, Iron Man 2. There's a lot of good stuff there, but you don't get it the first time you watch it. You don't get it at first glance. Like Iron Man 2 introduced like the briefcase Iron Man suit when he's on the track in Monaco or wherever they are. You get, we get characters, we get Django, we get, Scarlett Johansson introduced, Black Widow shows up. Like Iron Man 2 does a lot that you don't catch the first few times. Attack of the Clones is the same way. Like Attack of the Clones was one that I kind of crapped on early on, but there's so much going on in Attack of the Clones. And when I go back and watch it now, I really kind of look at myself in the mirror and go, why did you not like this that much? Why were you a young punk? What was your deal? So Jeff, exactly. Iron Man 2 is underrated. It's a great, great movie. Attack of the Clones, underrated. Great, great movie. Not as low on my list as probably it should have been. Mickey Rourke as, what was his name? I forget. The Russian, Justin Hammer. Again, 100%, great, great characters. Same thing. We get Django in Attack of the Clones. We get, these characters that come in that show up and, have a good impact, and then they go away and we don't get them as these series and as these movies continue. So for me, Attack of the Clones, Iron Man 2, that's it. Ivan Vanko. So that's my choice. So let's move on. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This was one big time, lots of fun. Certainly for my money, was my favorite of the prequel movies, even when they first came out, first go round. I went with Dark Knight Rises as my equivalent here. Dark Knight Rises and Revenge of the Sith are they lift more than you think they can. They're doing some heavy work there. Of course, Dark Knight, which we're going to talk about, no doubt, shows up in my list. A lot of people crap on Dark Knight Rises. A lot of people are like, you've got Catwoman, it's a little too whatever. I really love Dark Knight Rises, and the more I watch it, much like the more I watch Revenge of the Sith, they feel very similar. They feel movies that, okay, Angry's gonna take a different position, which we will get into when I get him on there. He would hazard that Dark Knight is more in line with Revenge. That's cool. We'll come to that. But for me, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, again, we're continuing stories. We're continuing stuff, obviously, that needs to be finished up. Dark Knight Rises, finishing up what happens in Dark Knight, kind of a different continuation of that story. But I think it punches above its weight. And I think Episode 3 does the same thing. Okay. Shay Gatsby also. I see how this is going. I'm saying Dark Knight goes with Revenge. Again, I like it. I like that there are some contrarian positions here because this is my opinion and that's yours. And that doesn't mean I'm right or you're wrong. So that's what these conversations are. I'm glad y'all are here. And this is what I wanted to do with this is hear your thoughts, get your kind of connecting points. Woodsy says, I love how they reimagine the Lazarus Pit and Rises, and I hate how people overlook it. And that's exactly it. Like, that's a great scene. That resurrection, obviously Batman being defeated, being broken, for me as a non-comic book person, sorry, Chris, we know it's the truth. All I had was the Bane comic book cover where Bane's breaking Batman, with the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the background. And I knew that was a thing, but, to see, that version of it to show up in Dark Knight Rises and to see, the climb, to see the way this all works. So for me, these two movies feel connected. These two movies feel like, kindred spirits in a lot of ways, at least is the way I view them. I like this, what Chaco said too. He said, I really dislike DKR for some reason. Revenge of the Sith give me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. Nice. I like that. Let's keep going. Let's get to Solo, a Star Wars story. One of our two kind of side journeys away from the 3 trilogies in the main Skywalker saga. Solo, the Star Wars story, a Star Wars story, sorry. Here's what I have for Solo. I have Wonder Woman. Here's my deal. We know Solo. We knew who Solo was. We knew who Han Solo was, but we get this kind of side story, backstory, fill it in. Here's some things going on. Wonder Woman's the same way. Linda Carter, growing up, I grew up with Dukes of Hazzard, old Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman. Like, it's a story that's been around. It's something that we're familiar with. It's in the zeitgeist. But this movie was way better than anybody expected it to be. And I know Solo kind of gets crapped on, and Solo gets crapped on because we had the whole release dates with, Solo and, whatever else came out the same year that Solo came out, within a year, all that stuff. But Solo's a fantastic movie and it's so much fun. Wonder Woman is a fantastic movie and it's so much fun. All right. Jeff's been booted from the chat. Sorry. He doesn't get to call in tonight. Just kidding. It's a great movie. Wonder Woman is a great movie for characters we know, characters we love, characters that have existed in our minds for long periods of time. And then we get to get some background. We get to get who they are, what their deal was, where they came from. And yeah, there were choices in them that weren't great. Oh man, we're gathering a horde. We're gathering a posse against Solo. That's okay. Again, it's okay. And there were choices that I didn't love. I didn't super love Han Solo when he gets his, okay, great, dumb, didn't have to do it, but whatever, we'll move on, because you get Lando, you get Kira, you get Beckett. Like, there are so many great characters. This is an excellent choice. Solo is Thor the Dark World, both flawed, but there's just something people like about it. That's a great comparison. And I have that's gonna fester in my brain for a little bit. That's actually a really good choice. But I went with Wonder Woman, and again, having dealt with, what we've all kind of experienced to a lot of the ways, the DC universe not being able to match the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I became a huge MCU guy. I'll say up through, Endgame, like I was all in for all those movies. So when Wonder Woman came out and the other DC movies had been a disappointment, I didn't have high expectations and was thoroughly surprised and really, really loved that movie. Solo came out, and of course I did have high expectations because I'm a Star Wars fan. And it mostly met them, but there were still some issues. So I don't know. This is where we're going. I'm going to hear from y'all about this. We're going to get into it, but let me finish up my list so that we can get to y'all, because I know there are thoughts hanging out there. Keep your notes. Contradict where you need to. Star Wars Rogue One. Star Wars Rogue One was a winner from the gate. There was no hesitations, no top to bottom, which connects to this particular Marvel movie. Also for me, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One, spy story, old school spy movie, not any space wizardry really other than Vader showing up at the end. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, old school 70s spy movie. It's one of those, it just hits, and it's so good. And even now when I watch it, and of course you've got Redford in it as what's his name, and you're getting like Dog Day Afternoon vibes. You're getting, these connections of, again, just a good spy movie, a good thriller, a little bit of political, a little conspiracy. This to me was an easy choice on this one. Some of these I went back and forth. A couple of them I tried to figure out, what do I want it to be? Where do I connect with it? But this one, this was an easy choice. So I don't know how anybody feels about this, whether I see Jeff is agreeing with me, says 100% on this one. It works, good spy movie. You love a good spy movie when you get one. Rogue One does it. Chaco says Rogue One is Blade. I like that. Haven't seen Blade in a long time. Excellent choice. So let's keep it moving. I want to be able to get through this list, get to a break, and then get y'all in here to hang out with me. Star Wars. Here we are. The one that started it all. The one that nobody saw coming. The one that nobody was prepared for. I had to go with my man, Iron Man, the first Iron Man. Star Wars changed the game. Iron Man changed the game. Out of that movie that came out, I don't even remember what year Iron Man came out, but it came out. Eric's with me. Jeff's with me. I like this. I like that. I've got some people tracking. It changed the game. It created an entire universe. Star Wars created an entire universe. And of course, George Lucas did that, but what we got? 2008, Chaco said. So thank you for being my real-time fact check. But it changed the game. There's really no better way to say that than look at what came from when Star Wars came out in 1977. All the movies, all the TV shows, games, animation, you name it. Same thing with Marvel. Same thing with Iron Man. Every single thing that came was because of these two movies. I remember leaving the movie theater, and I don't know if I've left a movie theater with the feeling I had when I left Iron Man 1 since I saw that movie the first time, where I truly went in really not knowing what I was going to get and was absolutely blown away. I would hope that that's how I would have felt in 1977 if I had gotten to see Star Wars when it was originally out. But I was just, there we go. And I want to pull up what Gatsby said. Gatsby said Batman 1989 for Star Wars. That was my number 2 choice because it was also that idea of just iconic, change things, everything that built from there. I think the reason that I held up on that, and I have 89 in my list, we're going to get to it. Batman was a known property in 89. We had Batman before. We didn't have Star Wars. I know we had Iron Man in comic books, so I'm not saying that he came out of the blue, out of nowhere. But, unless you read comic books, Iron Man wasn't a known quantity ultimately. I think I remembered when I heard this movie was coming, I was like, yeah, I think I saw a comic book one time where maybe Iron Man actually had FE written on his head, or on his mask or whatever. I was like, isn't that the guy that it's an element, but it's, I don't know. So yeah, Star Wars, Iron Man. That's what I went with. That's right. And that's my point, Angry. Nobody knew what Star Wars was in 79, but people did know who Batman was. And it's not a bad choice. Like I said, it was my number 2 for a minute. But for me, Star Wars A New Hope was definitely Iron Man 1. So Empire Strikes Back. Here we go. What do we got? Is it going to be controversial? It might be. I went with Thor Ragnarok. I can't wait. Maybe I should just sit for a minute and wait for the chat to blow up. Here's why I went with Thor Ragnarok. Because I have said for a while now, certainly since we've gotten our 11 Star Wars movies, that I have a favorite Star Wars movie. Angry. Swing and a miss. Love it. That's great. I have a favorite Star Wars movie and I have a best Star Wars movie. And those are my opinions. My favorite Star Wars movie is The Empire Strikes Back. Emotionally, original trilogy kid, all the reasons. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie and 1A, 1B on my favorite movie of all time. But in my opinion, the best Star Wars movie is The Last Jedi. This is me with the MCU. Thor Ragnarok is my favorite MCU movie. Straight up, no hesitation. It's funny. It's emotional. It does a lot. Taika Waititi is a brilliant, brilliant person. So for me, I went with favorite and best. So when we get to Last Jedi, which to me is the best Star Wars movie, we're going to get to what I believe is the best MCU movie. I think I have to remember. Oh no, but I know what it is. Okay. We'll get there. So I went with favorite best, and my favorite Star Wars movie is The Empire Strikes Back. My favorite MCU or comic book movie is Thor Ragnarok. That was my choice. It was an emotional one. Eric says I can't pick a good one for Empire, but Ragnarok is a banger. Taika Waititi is the man. I wholeheartedly agree. Angry Tasty Cakes suggests Infinity War for Empire. That's a great choice. I don't know that I have any team up movies in my list, which is an interesting whole other side quest. But let's get to Return of the Jedi. What do I have for Return of the Jedi? I have Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. And also, I wish I had thought to, when I was picking artwork to do this, I wish I had pulled the Matt Ferguson prints, because Matt Ferguson made prints for the Guardians movies that look like the original Star Wars posters. Eric says Avengers Endgame for Return of the Jedi. Excellent choice also. I went with Guardians for my Return of the Jedi simply because it's a movie that, while it wasn't always my favorite, every time I watch it, it makes me happy. I love the Ewoks. I love Jabba's palace. I love, the journey that Luke goes on as he fights Vader. And Guardians does the same thing. Like, Guardians kind of came out of nowhere. Like, Guardians was way better than I anticipated it being. It just hit. It hit on a certain level. So for me, these two connect kind of just on it wasn't my favorite. Even now, it's not my favorite. But every time I watch it, I go, why don't I watch this more? It just connects for me on that level. So keeping it moving. And we're going to hit a quick commercial break in just a minute. We're going to get through these last three. Star Wars The Force Awakens. This is where we get into, the sequel trilogy. What are we doing here? This is the one that I went with, Batman 1989. And it goes for what Angry or Jeff or somebody said just a minute ago. I was Angry. Known quantity time. We knew what Star Wars was, and it was time to give it a reboot. We knew who Batman was from the 60s, Adam West, but it was time for it to get a reboot. And it did. And people loved it. Now, where it went after that followed some varying paths. People love Batman Returns. Then we get into the, Batman and Robin and some of that kind of stuff. And it becomes a whole different deal. So for me, Force Awakens revitalized Star Wars love the way Batman 1989 revived Batman love, and it kind of led to a lot of the advent of the superhero movies. Of course, there had been Superman before, but this kind of restarted that engine on a lot of levels. So for me, Star Wars The Force Awakens is Batman 1989. Jeff says 1989 Batman is the Mott's baby. All right, what about The Last Jedi? I told you this is my favorite. No, this is the best Star Wars movie. Correction. This is the best, in my opinion, the best Star Wars movie. The Dark Knight Rises. That's my, thing. If I'm going to go with Empire as my favorite and Ragnarok is my favorite, Last Jedi is the best. And in my opinion, The Dark Knight is the best. That movie messes me up every time. And Heath Ledger deserves every bit of that post-mortem Oscar that he received. And oh man, Chris, I hate that you're not feeling well, because I'd love to hear you talk about this. Chris said, for me, The Last Jedi equals Man of Steel. Stop hating on the SC movies, chat. DC movies, sorry. Angry says you're entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong. You're 100% right, and I'll drink to that. So cheers to you, my friend. Ooh, Chaco says TLJ is V for Vendetta. Gosh, that's a movie I haven't seen in a long time. So yeah, for me, these two with Empire, with Last Jedi, I went with favorite and best. To me, Ragnarok is my favorite superhero movie, but to me, Dark Knight is the best comic book movie I believe I've ever seen. I just adore that movie. It's so powerful. It's so good. It's so stark. Like, again, Heath Ledger as the Joker absolutely crushed it. It's so good. It connects for me on a bunch of different levels. So let's hit the last one. Let's hit Rise of Skywalker, a controversial pick in and of itself. And I can't wait. It's like, this is the moment I waited for this. I went with Batman and Robin. Let me tell you why I went with Batman and Robin. Rise of Skywalker has problems. Batman and Robin has problems. But they're still watchable. There's still stuff in there. There's still moments. There's still times. And there's a lot going on. I mean, just looking at these two posters on the screen, we're talking about Jeffrey Qualalio. It's just a lot. There's a lot going on in Rise of Skywalker. I have said before, I think Rise of Skywalker suffers from what the final season of Game of Thrones did. It wasn't that everything was bad, it's that there wasn't enough time to do it. I wish they had split Rise of Skywalker into 2 movies like they did with the Harry Potter finale. Take time to let it breathe. Let Game of Thrones have 4 more episodes to explain who's going where, what they're doing. Batman and Robin doesn't necessarily suffer from that problem. Batman and Robin is just jam-packed. You've got Poison Ivy, you've got Batgirl, you've got Mr. Freeze, we've got Bat Nipples. Tross suffers from Chris Terrio. Also an excellent point. But when you go back and watch them, like, even if they're bad, there's moments you're like, oh yeah, I like this part. And for Batman and Robin, it's cheese. It's straight up popcorn cheese. Like, what are we doing here? I can't believe this is a movie that I'm watching. But then you get done and you're like, wow, I did that. And I can't hate it, but I also don't love it. It's there. And Batman and Robin exists in that same space. So does Rise of Skywalker. So that was my list. Those are my 11. There are so many movies to choose from. And you have given me great options already. There's a couple of them that I'm already rethinking, going, that could be a thing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take another commercial break. And when we get back, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And I want to hear from you, whether it's contradicting one of my choices, replacing one of my choices with another of yours. You've already given us some good ones. Let's do that. So we're going to take another commercial break. And when we come back, I want to hear from you. We'll be right back.
It's Star Wars radio-controlled R2-D2. 2 9-volt and 2 C alkaline batteries not included. You can make R2-D2 move, beep, and flash his light by wireless radio control.
Hey, let me try it.
You can make R2 move forward.
Look out, Dad!
Backward, turn and beep.
Hurry, turn, Dad!
Radio-controlled R2-D2 from the Star Wars collection by Kenner.
Escape pod landing. Where am I?
It's the new Star Wars Land of the Jawas that you put together. Action figures sold separately. You can move the action lever and make the Jawa capture R2-D2.
R2, are you all right? What are they doing to you?
You can raise the elevator and make R2-D2 disappear into the sandcrawler.
Hang on, R2. I'm right behind you. Me too.
Kenner's new Star Wars Land of the Jawas. Action figures each sold separately.
We are back on Force Connect. It's me hanging out by myself on a Friday night, only I'm not by myself. I have all of you. I just dropped the link in the chat during that commercial break. I want to hear from you about your Star Wars comic book movie comparisons, doppelgangers. I don't know what we're calling them, but we're calling them something. I have a caller who is right on top of the button, right on top of the bell, ready to go. So let me hit this button. Let me get this man in here and let him tell me how wrong I am about so many things.
Go for Papa Palpatine.
You have a collect call from
Darth Vader.
I gotta take this. Hold on.
Angry Tasty Cakes is in the house. Good evening, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I apologize. My AC is broken. I've been sweating all freaking day. So this is
That's
terrible.
miserable.
I got the wicked hair going on.
As someone who basically sweats all of my entire life, I feel your pain and I hate it for you.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
No doubt. It's not the time of year where people are supposed to be sweating. What's up with that?
No, I had my window open. We had hail. I was like, you know what? No, we're gonna shut that.
Yeah, not so much. Outstanding. Well, it's good to see you as always. We have gone through this, little exercise that I came up with. I've been watching, of course, as we've gone along through the chat. You certainly had some opinions, and a couple of them clicked with mine, which is awesome, and a couple of them didn't, which is also awesome. That's the way it works. If we can't disagree on things and still get along, what are we even doing here? So, big rocks off the top of your head. What do you have for me as we're looking at this topic tonight?
So I think mainline movies, right? I think
Yes.
really come down to you have like Iron Man. I like to think of Iron Man as Phantom Menace, actually, because it kicked off a whole generation.
Absolutely.
Attack of the Clones. I mean, that one's gonna be iffy. I think if I had to put an equivalent to it, it would be Marvel again. It would probably be Iron Man 2.
Right. Okay.
I think would be Attack of the Clones. Revenge of the Sith, I think, would be closer, in all honesty, to The Dark Knight, just because like you have two opposing forces, but they can't exist without each other, like Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like they really can't exist without each other. And they're just too opposing for it to be anything other than that. And then they have like one big culmination, and then suddenly they split, but they're still working against each other. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it totally tracks. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, damn, I missed that.
Yeah, it just kind of like, to me, that makes more sense. And then like Solo and Rogue One, I think, are more in line with the Guardians of the Galaxies movies.
Okay.
Like there's just wacky, they're goofy, they're silly, they're not meant to be. I mean, I think if I had to equate them to anything in particular, I think Rogue One would be more Guardians 3 because it's still goofy and silly and whatever. But that serious note, in Guardians 3, I think is where like Rogue One really culminates. You know what I'm saying? And then, Solo, I think, is more Guardians 1. It's just fun. As I punch my microphone, it's just fun. It's silly. It's just meant to be taken as just.
I almost went Ant-Man for Solo. I felt like there was some connective tissue there with the silliness, with the lightheartedness. I could see certainly that young Alden, optimistic Han being a little Paul Rudd, Ant-Man. That clicked for me, but I didn't end up committing to that.
I kind of can give it to that, though. I think the problem with Ant-Man and, say, Guardians 1 is that they're too similar in that respect. So you can't really... I mean, you can, but you can't choose one over the other because they're kind of the same in a lot of ways, So I get where you're coming from with that. And now I'm kind of like, damn it. But no, I think, Batman and Robin, I think... would also tie into Rogue One in a certain way because there's just too much happening. You got bat nipples and it's fine. Everyone's fine with Clooney and that's cool. And then I don't know. I think there's just too many to kind of like equate. And I truly think that Endgame is going to be Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
And I say that just because almost beat for beat, they mimicked each other. Now I know that Marvel has been in development far longer than the sequel trilogy was. I mean, they had like a 15-year plan back in like 2008. So I understand like the beat for beat, they're going to match, almost identically. So I can't really say anything harsh about it. But I think Rise of Skywalker is going to be Endgame. Last Jedi is going to be Infinity War for sure. It ends on a terrible note where it's like, oh, we lost. Well, I mean, you're not going to in the next one. We all know that.
Yep.
And then, I think Iron Man 2 is going to be Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
Man, like there's too much to kind of think about because there's like fewer movies for Star Wars than there are for DC and Marvel.
Right. Yeah.
I think Dark Knight Rises is going to be more. Man, that's actually a good one. Dark Knight Rises, I think, would be more equivalent to, I would say, Return of the Jedi.
Okay. And
that's only because at the end, when everything culminates, like everyone kind of comes together and is like, you know what? No, we're done with this. Like, it's time to overthrow the people.
Mm-hmm. It's time to go.
This is done. This can't do it anymore. So I think like certain story beats in the movies are going to take are gonna take it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Awesome.
Listen,
Cheyenne, your fried brain.
Is, in case y'all aren't aware, Cheyenne's actually my girlfriend, and she comes in here to say hello. But I'm gonna have words.
That's right. Y'all are gonna have to work this one out on your own in the heat later.
No, I'll text her right now and be like, "Nah, you listen."
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I agreed with you for a lot of it, and
some
of it I disagree. But I mean, that's what fosters appropriate conversation.
Correct. I love it. And again, just watching the chat. Not only your comments, but comments that everybody else made. Like, it got me thinking, like, damn, I missed that one, or I should have, put more thought into it. But like, it's a lot to, and I think I said at the top, originally I was just going to do this just MCU. And then when Chris suggested, can we go, all comic book movies? Like, I'll be honest, like I was trying to figure out where Meteor Man fit into some of these movies. Like, get Robert Townsend going on. Like, it's a whole other thing. I see Eric Brown laughing in the background at that. But like, if you're of a certain age, you're like, yeah, that was a comic book movie too. Like, it just, there's stuff, and it becomes a much wider field to try and sort out. So I appreciate you playing along. I'm going to get you moving. I've got a bunch more folks hanging out in the background, but it's always good to see you, sir.
I will say now, discount DC. Sorry, Chris, they're not good movies, but I will say that the Phantom Menace, I think, is closest to Blue Beetle, and I will say Blue Beetle was pretty solid.
How about that? I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty decent. I would watch it.
Put that on my to-do list. Awesome. Always good to see you, my friend. I'm going to send you on your way.
Gotcha. I'll be here.
All right. Later. See, this is what we do. We hang out, we disagree, we have fun, we laugh, and we talk about bat nipples. Like, what else do you want on a Friday night when you're hanging out at home doing other stuff? So we're going to keep this moving. I've got more callers hanging out in the background. This gentleman has had several things to say in the chat. So let's do this and let's keep going.
Greetings, Exalted One.
Darth Chaco in the house.
Hello. How's it going?
What's up, sir? Excellent. Good to see you.
Can you hear me okay? I've changed my mic setup a little bit.
I can hear you. You sound great.
All right, cool.
Outstanding. How's life?
Life is it's just going. I have been really slacking on in the content department. A lot of it has to do with strike going on, and then other stuff going on in the world that just kind of gets me bummed out. I
hear you. Well, I'm always grateful when you show up to hang out with us a little bit on Friday night. So I'm glad to see you, and I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are on any of my list, any other thoughts. What you got for us?
So for me, I'm going to be taking some of these things older school, and I don't actually have an answer for all of them.
That's okay. Not a problem.
But I fully agree. Phantom Menace, Blue Beetle. It is Blue Beetle. He came out of nowhere and said that, and I think that like absolutely nails it.
I love that. Can't wait to check that out.
Fully agree with you that Attack of the Clones is Iron Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
Revenge of the Sith, though, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say this is, and it's going to sound weird because of where I placed the other movie in this series.
Sure.
I'm going to say that it's X2, the
Okay.
second X-Men movie, because it's not perfect, but it's great. It's got great action, it's got great set pieces, and the feeling of elation while watching the movie is like, it feels the same for me personally. So yeah, I'm gonna go X2 for that.
Love
and
it.
then
And I'll say this before you go any farther. I finished this list as I was thinking about it, and because there are so many movies, literally I finished my list, everything was completed, and I don't know what got me to this point, but I went, oh shit, there's a whole bunch of X-Men movies. Like I didn't even factor X-Men movies into my whole list, because it wasn't until I was done I was like, no, I can't go back and redo this. And I've seen a lot of them, but I'm not familiar enough to be like, oh yeah, it should be, whatever. So I'll call it a hole in my, knowledge base. But yeah, after I got done, I was like, oh yeah, that's a whole other thing that I didn't think about. So I'm glad that you've thrown some X-Men in there.
Well, yeah, and I was also just trying to mix up, just in general. But for A New Hope, this is where it gets weird, because I'm actually going to say X-Men 1.
Okay.
Because I think even more than 2008's Iron Man, X-Men 1 was the first time I saw a comic movie and I was like, we can do this? Like, this is a thing that can be done. You can actually take comic book medium and try to take it serious, at least to some extent. So yeah, that's where I'm going with that.
Okay.
Empire Strikes Back, it's my number 2 Star Wars movie. Love it. I think Dark Knight fits. I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi, I actually don't have one specifically for Return of the Jedi. Sure. But it does give me the same type of vibes as in Infinity War, where the conflict has been going on for a while and you have the separate, desperate storylines. I mean, obviously it ends on a negative note and Return of the Jedi doesn't, but the way it has multiple, factions running around at the same time, it kind of comes together. I see that. And so The Force Awakens, to keep in line with what I said earlier, it's X-Men First Class.
Okay.
It takes the same concept of before, reboots it for a new era, changes out a bunch of pieces. I know The Force Awakens gets a lot of flack for having similarities to A New Hope. And it drives me crazy, because that was the point.
That's exactly the point. Yes. They were bringing people like me back in. Yes.
Yeah. So it's for the older crowd. It's a similar story, but because the story is similar, you see how all the characters are the exact opposite. Rey is the exact opposite of Luke, and it's exemplified in that story. Anyways.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
The Last Jedi, I'm actually torn now, because first I said V for Vendetta, because God, that's a fantastic movie. But I think more than anything else, The Last Jedi is a departure from run around and big action set piece to there is this stuff in it, but we're going to deal with some concepts. We're going to deal with some darkness, some morally gray areas, and stuff like that. Just a few things.
Well, and I wonder, and I see this because Shay Gatsby said this in the chat also, and I had this thought as you started talking about X-Men movies. I almost wonder, is there potential for Last Jedi to be Logan as well? Same thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Grittier, we get into it's a different mode. It gets outside of, like you said, the action set piece. It gets to more existential, more emotional, and that's another one. That's another movie I'd like to revisit. I've seen Logan, but I need to go back and watch it with new eyes and, just really absorb it all.
definitely, it's always good for a rewatch, but it ends up being somewhat depressing. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I was torn because I thought of Logan, and I think that it actually might fit it a little bit better.
Excellent.
And then Rise of Skywalker. I was with you with Batman and Robin.
I had to get silly somewhere, and why not do it with Rise of Skywalker?
Batman and Robin works. Another one that also, but I also think Batman versus Superman fits here as well, because both of the films, in my opinion, suffered from the same thing, where it just tried to do so much in a single movie. So like Batman versus Superman, like how are you gonna give us our entry point into DC's Batman when he's already old and like about to retire? You know what I mean?
Yes.
How are you going to give us a Superman origin film, not give us a film of him being Superman and then make him die? You know, they introduce a lot of characters, a lot of themes, a lot of stuff, and didn't take enough time, in my opinion, to really, develop them. I will say that Rise of Skywalker feels, one of my friends always says this, that Rise of Skywalker's, of all of them, feels the most like a comic book because of the way things occur and how quickly things occur. So I do enjoy that. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the list.
I love it. And I'm going to put this on the record officially. Pete's not here tonight, but we'll play the clip back for him at some point. Now I need our next t-shirt / sticker design to be Claude, but I need it to be Claude saying, "Why did you say that name?" Like I need a Batman, Superman, Martha, Claude. I want a crossover on that one. So we're going to have to figure that out.
I'm into it.
Yeah, it's totally there. So this is excellent. Chaco, thank you so much for calling in. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Always glad to see you. Always glad to hear from you. I'm going to send you on your way. We've got some more folks hanging out, but I love your list, and I can't wait to see you again soon.
Yeah. All right. See you in the chat.
See you, buddy. See, this is it. I've got people smarter than me, brilliant, hanging out, telling me where I'm wrong and giving me even better ideas, even for our dumb little t-shirt. So it totally works. We are going to take one more quick commercial break. And when we get back, I've got at least 3 more of y'all hanging out in the chat. I'm going to get to, or in the background. I'm going to get to y'all. I want to hear from you as well. So hang out for one more minute and we will be right back.
Pick on someone your own size.
The Star Wars trilogy is back on the big screen, and it's even better with a Pepsi.
Great effects, man.
Yeah.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Everyone, we've got to save the Queen!
We're under attack! Misa Jar Jar Binks come for comic relief.
Emergency landing on Tatooine.
No! Pod racing is with. Love you, Mom.
Love you, Padme. Oh no! Darth Maul! My brains are spilling out!
Oh, joy, Vind.
This is the weirdest date I've ever been on. I'm out of here.
Go you must.
Farewell. Bye-bye.
Star Wars Episode 1 cans collect all 24 this summer.
We are back on Force Connect. We are talking about Star Wars movies and their comic book equivalents. We've had a great conversation tonight. I gave you my list. Other people have come on and told you way better ideas than I had. And I'm even going to throw this up on the screen because I agree completely. Shay Gatsby says, if anything, this episode has told us there are many films in the last 8 to 10 years that are way overstuffed. And I wholeheartedly agree. We have gotten into this like cram it all in mode, make it happen. 3-hour movie instead of 2 really awesome, 2-hour movies. There's room to expand. There's room to let it simmer a little bit. I've got another caller hanging out. This is my Cal Ripken. He's here. He hasn't let me down yet. He's even representing because I threw out a Claude reference. So let's get him in here.
Hello, what have we here?
Honest to Claude himself, Eric Elliott, representing writing for the brand. What's up, brother? How are you?
Not too bad. Zillow gang, how it is. I guess before I start talking about my notes on the subject, what I'll say is that anyone that demonizes or calls upon violence against refugees is an asshole. That's one.
Fair.
Two is that anyone that says that someone that's a fan of a franchise is not a fan or a terrible person just because they do something that you don't approve of in fiction, you're an asshole. Anyway, I just thought I'd get those things off my chest. They're on my mind.
Get our asshole disclaimers out of the way, and we'll keep it moving.
All right. To me, Phantom Menace is the equivalent of Spider-Man 2002.
Okay.
It's doing a kickoff of something that people already.
Tobey Maguire?
Yeah, it's something that people already have familiarity with. It's coming back in a big way, and people are very excited about it. I tried to stay within 10 years of when the actual Star Wars movie came out to when the movie I'm comparing it to, because I think a lot of these movies. I'm not going to be like one of those chuds that just like this movie can be made today, but like the values and the techniques are different when we make movies. In just past couple of years, they've switched up. So I think, and it also has heart and has a lot of like little goofy moments.
Yeah.
But still fun. So I think that's why it fits well with it. Attack of the Clones, I will give to X-Men Wolverine Origins.
Okay.
It is one of the most maligned in both respective franchises. It's continuing to bank on the idea of like, oh, we're going in the past. It's like you didn't even know about these things that we didn't tell you about. And there's a lot of weird sacchariness with the romance in both of these movies.
Yeah.
And a lot of things feel rushed.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I still enjoy Attack of the Clones, but I have my criticism as well. Revenge of the Sith, I put as Daredevil. With Ben Affleck.
Nice.
A lot of people really do enjoy this movie, but I think it still suffers from a lot of clunky dialogue when it comes to romance. A lot of goofiness that doesn't quite fit. But action's still good, and most of the performances are still good. It still has, a little bit of that gritty edge, just like, oh, like this person's getting torn apart by a sea train, and in this movie we have children being slaughtered. A New Hope is Superman 78. Is like, even though no one knew what Star Wars was, I understand that, but it's, it becomes a template for practically every superhero movie afterwards. It has a lot of hokiness. It still has heart. It's, a very simple story, but still told very well. And automatically we have some really standout performances of actors that people are going to want to see more of.
Right.
In those respective movies. Empire Strikes Back to me is Batman 89. It has a lot of camp, but also a lot of seriousness for the time period it came out.
Right.
It has a lot of upping the stakes and just like boom, like we get a lot of drama with like a really captivating villain.
Okay.
Return of the Jedi, I put as Superman 2.
Okay.
It has a lot of the elements of the first Superman movie, but it's a little more silly. A lot more jokes in it. But people still come for like the struggle of the main character. Like that's what people like can sometimes shed a tear over. Like when Superman has, give up his powers, or Luke has to confront his father. Now let's jump into the future. We have The Force Awakens. To me, this is Days of Future Past. It is banking on the franchise having two different generations and bringing those actors together. Yes, it does have stakes in it, but a lot of times it's just like, oh, we're going to the next thing, we're going to the next thing, and it's just fun. And we don't get a big heartbreak moment until the end when Han Solo dies. And I think a similar pattern is with the X-Men movie.
Okay.
The Last Jedi to me is Black Panther.
Okay. Love that choice. And I'll say this, just I want to hear your reason for it, but I will say I love Black Panther with every fiber of my being, and it grieved me to not figure out where to put that movie in my list. So I love hearing you have a spot to plug it in.
Yeah, like it has a very interesting villain that you can understand to a large percentage of the point. You get a lot of backstory of why the villain is the way he is.
Yep. Love that.
And it has a very strong, odd connection with the main character. Main character is also trying to find themselves of like what their position is in this wider conflict.
Yes.
There's a lot of sociopolitical conversations are being had in the movie. It's no longer just like the backdrop of like rebels versus empire. It's a little more complicated, and I think Black Panther does that as well. And there's also a lot of goofy humor bits mixed in with like really sad moments.
Yeah. That's a really great choice. Like if I could swap mine for something, I'd probably swap that. Like that's an excellent choice. Well done.
Yeah, I agree with some other people of Tross is Batman vs Superman. It's clunky, but it has like emotional moments that hit very hard. There's a vision of a dad with them with one of the main characters who's dead. It's trying to fit way too much. It's good that that movie got the Ultimate Edition because some parts are like a breakneck speed. Like you go to the bathroom and you miss like 5 major plot points of Batman vs Superman or Tross. Rogue One, I agree, is Captain America: Winter Soldier. Yeah. A small team trying to get something done, and like they're going against the man. Like that's the focus of it. And there's little cutesy jokes here and there.
Yeah.
Now I got two left. Solo.
What you got?
To me, Solo is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
It is an origin that we're just kind of plopped into. And he has a complicated relationship with his love interest. There's a lot of kind of tongue-in-cheek humor in it.
Right.
The villain is played by like an amazing actor that like a character we don't know much about.
Right.
And like I feel like even just the way it's shot, it's kind of hazy at some points, like cinematography wise, and it gives me a similar vibe to it.
Okay, I love that.
And the last one's the Clone Wars movie,
which
y'all keep forgetting about. To me, that's Ninja Turtles 2007. Not only is it animated, it was intentionally made as a springboard. Now the only difference is the Clone Wars was eventually, like worked out. The Ninja Turtle one, they do another reboot. But there's a lot of weird jokes in it that don't quite work. But there's other points where it's just like, oh, there's actual like good character moments in this. This section is like kind of badass, but then it goes through it like a dumb joke. Like it's very bipolar in its tone. Both of these movies.
Outstanding. Eric, that is an excellent list, my friend. You put some good thought into that. You've helped me see some other opportunities, some other ideas. I love it. Always glad to hear from you. Your streak stays alive in whatever form it is now. And you're rocking an Honest to Claude shirt. So good to see you. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again soon. So much fun tonight. I've got 2 more callers. I'm going to get to them before I get you on with the rest of your Friday night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for humoring me in this kind of randomly weird thought exercise. So let me get to our next caller. We're going to go straight from one Eric to another because that's what we do here on Force Connect. It's time to roll.
What do you want?
He's been here all night. He's been contributing in the chat. He's agreed with me at times. He's had other ideas. Sir Eric Brown in the house. What's up, friend?
How's it going?
Excellent.
Yeah, my list isn't super well thought out. I'm not going to have too much editorial around this because I don't think this is super deep. This is just like maybe like initial reactions. Although some of what has been said has made me kind of ebb and flow and maybe change my list up a little bit. But
that's what's great about conversation, and like certainly in this fandom that we all love and exist in, certainly on social media, the inability of people to like listen to what somebody else has to say is certainly the most frustrating part. But like I've had so much fun tonight listening to other people go, yeah, I see that, but also what about this? And there have been a couple times I'm like, damn, yeah, that is better than the thing I said. Like if we just talk and listen to each other, it's weird what can happen, you know?
Yeah, I tried to keep my list limited to MCU, but I did venture out a little bit because I think that there are some cases that need to be made that haven't maybe been brought up yet.
Absolutely. What are your highlights? Hit me.
So Phantom Menace, I don't really have a good one on that. Like, I don't think there's one like comic book movie that I was just looking forward to as much as I was looking forward to the Phantom Menace in '99.
Mm-hmm.
That was just the pinnacle of like Star Wars excitement for me. Sure. But in terms of the movie and maybe where it sits with some people, I feel like maybe Eternals.
Okay.
Because not that like it has similar story beats or whatnot, but I think Eternals may be one of those MCU movies that maybe gets appreciated more with age, especially as the MCU hopefully fleshes some of that stuff out further down the line. So I think there might be some similarities on that front. Attack of the Clones. Yeah, I was torn on Iron Man 2 or 3 because both kind of feel the same. Like lots of CG.
Yes.
Right. Like Iron Man 3 had all the like the different Iron Man suits and whatnot at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I was torn, but like that's pretty much either or as far as I'm concerned. I do like I love Attack of the Clones, and I will unapologetically defend flipping Yoda, and
yes,
that was one of the coolest moments in my movie going experience. Revenge of the Sith, I feel like evokes something more akin to like Winter Soldier to me. I don't know. Like for me, that was just like the kind of brother kind of notion with Cap and Bucky and whatnot, and Obi-Wan and Anakin.
That's an excellent point. Like those scenes, obviously we know, you were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. Like we know all of that. But in Winter Soldier, you get that at the end when they're fighting on the helicarrier and that whole thing. Like they have those same moments. Like that's an excellent point. I hadn't thought about that.
Solo, I think I said Spider-Man Homecoming because it kind of reinvigorated the Spider-Man franchise. Like everyone knows Spider-Man,
right?
Everyone knows Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as far as that logic went. But I like if you're looking for like a heist film, Ant-Man, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
it works.
I'm not sure how much further you can go on that. And I think Solo's a fun movie. I don't care what anyone says.
Agreed.
And then Rogue One to me seems more like Guardians of the Galaxy. Obviously, it doesn't end quite the same. Groot sacrifices himself, I guess, but like the found family element and whatnot, I think kind of aligns more with like the Rogue One crew. So A New Hope, I don't think there's any other choice other than Iron Man. I don't think you could find any other like if there's one like for like kind of parallel for impact on everything, it has to be that. Empire, I couldn't think of a good analog for that, but I think people pointed out Dark Knight, and that's probably a good choice. I'll leave it at that. Return of the Jedi seems like Endgame because like everything kind of like
it comes to a head.
Right. It ties up, like it's the culmination of like the first three phases, like the Infinity Saga, and then like Return of the Jedi is like the end, seemingly the end of Star Wars, right? Force Awakens to me, I think, is Age of Ultron.
Okay.
Because like I'm not trying to sound negative. It's not that I don't like The Force Awakens, but it is not Ultron wasn't like a copy paste, but it was of anything. But it was like, here's the formula. Let's like just iterate on that and not necessarily deliver something new and unexpected. Right. Which is why I love The Last Jedi so much, is because after The Force Awakens, I was not expecting to be just like, I was not expecting The Last Jedi, and I'm so glad we got that. Right. So for me, I kind of expected this, like for me, I can't remember what I said in the chat initially, but to me, like I've been a fan of Taika Waititi's for ages, but like Ragnarok is just like completely like reset that reset everything around Thor and those characters. Yeah. So for me, it was just like, and you wouldn't expect that with Thor, right? Right. But it just worked.
It works,
right?
100%. Well, and it's interesting that you brought up Ultron, because that's the other one, like Black Panther, that I kept trying to figure out, where does Ultron fit in my list? Because I love Ultron a lot more than a lot of other people do. Like, I really like that movie.
Yeah, I don't dislike it. Then like I like both Ultron and The Force Awakens. It's just like neither are like, they're like kind of middle of the road, right? Maybe lower half. In any case, Black Panther is probably a good shout for Last Jedi too. But Rise of Skywalker, I said Batman v Superman because the Chris Terrio connection more than anything. But I'm going to bring up a movie that I think might be a bit more timely on this, and The Flash. Okay. Especially with like the hack job that was done with like the filming whole production process and whatnot.
The expectation of what it could be. Yep.
And the culmination of the end of EU or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's a very, very good point. I like that.
Yeah. So that's it.
And if nothing else, you responded when I mentioned Meteor Man. So if nothing else,
I love that movie. I don't know I haven't thought about that movie in God knows how long, but I can't count how many times I rented that as a kid.
And here's what's even funnier about that. Robert Townsend, who was in Meteor Man, who was Meteor Man, one of the episodes of the Wonder Years that I was in as a guest or as a extra, when I met Jeff Qualio, Robert Townsend directed the episode and was there. Way. And I was looking at him going, holy shit, that's Meteor Man. He's right over there.
That's awesome.
Actually, it was the episode Jeff and I were in together at the movie theater at the Eastdale Mall in Montgomery, Alabama. also with the grandfather who was Hostetler in Deadwood. For anybody who's watched Deadwood, like all these like connections, whatever. But yeah, Robert Townsend directed the episode, one of the episodes of Wonder Years that I was a background.
Do you have a clip of this or a screenshot? Because that needs to be shared. I can find it. Yeah, there's
a clip somewhere of Jeff and I talking to each other in the reboot of the Wonder Years outside a movie theater. So
nice.
Hold on. Actually, he's screaming in the background. What'd you say, Qualia?
It's on my Twitter page. That page.
Yeah, we'll go find it. We'll tweet it back.
Oh wait,
later.
this is the new one. This isn't the original one from.
No. This is the reboot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Still,
yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. Goodbye. We'll get to Jeff in a minute. We'll finish his story after this. Eric, it's always good to see you, my friend. Always great to hang out.
Yeah,
thanks for
cheers.
hanging out with us tonight. And cheers to you as well, and have a great night. All right, I cut him off. I'm going to get him back in here in just a second. I'm going to pour just a last, wee bit of a nip to get us through the last of the show. But yeah, Jeff Qualia, get in here.
Hello there.
He's back. He's been rocking in a chair on his back porch for like the last hour and 20 minutes.
Hey, what else could I ask for? Nice, pleasant night. Force Connect on my back
That's
porch.
right. That's right. It's happening, my friend.
Yeah. This has been a great show. This has been a great show. I didn't have a lot of time to think about this, so I'm approaching this from a different.
That's okay. You don't even have to give me the whole list if you don't want to. You can give me some highlights.
I'm not going to bore everybody and run down 11 of my things because I didn't think
what
about
are your highlights? That's right. What do you got?
So I'm going to approach this in terms of trilogies.
Okay.
So the OT trilogy to me lines up. This is how I feel about them. Like lines up to me with the Captain America trilogy. All three movies are lights out, 100 times 10. You can watch any of those three at any time, no matter what mood you're in, no matter what you're doing. If any of those three come on TV, you're watching them.
Right.
So that's what I equate. So the prequel trilogy, I would equate to the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight or Batman trilogy.
Yep.
Because they're both phenomenal. Both have some plot holes, a few holes in the movies, but give me time and I'll find holes in any movie, even my favorite one.
That's right.
Pacific Rim is the greatest movies of all time. It's got so many holes in it, I lost count. Anyway, so that's where I equate those. And then the sequel trilogy, man.
I think the sequel trilogy. I think the sequel trilogy could be the Guardians trilogy.
That's where I was leaning.
Actually, I think that's the way it goes. I think the first one hits original, exciting. The middle one, you're like, oh, there's some stuff here. You get to that third one, you're like, I mean, yeah, but I don't know. Like, I think that's
by the
what
third one, you're almost worn out. By the third one, you're almost just like,
it didn't go where you wanted it to go. It didn't quite land.
Right.
It didn't
I'll agree
stick
with
the
Chaco.
landing, as they say.
That's very, very well said. I will agree with Chaco about Flash and Solo.
That's also good.
Both high expectations. Both complete shit shows in production, both chopped up, both, I don't know if Flash got a new director, but Solo got a new director halfway through the movie, and Ron Howard, bless his heart, did the best he could with what he had. But both letdowns, in my opinion. The first Avenger is criminally, I lost that. But anyway, that's where I go, but I agree with a lot of what you had to say. I tried so hard to find something to equate to the two Deadpools.
I did too.
But I'm like, there's no F-bombs in Star Wars. And,
it's a whole other balls out galaxy thing.
Like Deadpool's in its own corner of the internet, and
that's what makes it so great.
But that's why it's so good. Because as like Ryan Reynolds was born, as much as Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Tony Stark, Ryan Reynolds was born to play Wade Wilson. And
I cannot recommend enough. If anybody's looking for another podcast to listen to, like we all don't have enough, there's a podcast called Strike Force 5, and it is Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver. 5 late night TV talk show hosts who, during the strike, when the writers were out, didn't have anything going on, didn't have anything to do. So they put together this podcast, and it's the 5 of them every episode. And they were sponsored by all of Ryan Reynolds' companies, Mint Mobile, Aviation Gen, all that stuff. And basically they used the money that Ryan Reynolds sponsored them with to pay their staffs, which was awesome.
Wow.
But there's like 12 episodes of this podcast. And I've talked many times about how I'm a sucker for behind the scenes and process and all this stuff. Those 5 late night TV show talk hosts, every episode talking about like, oh yeah, the time, whatever. And like, they have an episode where Letterman is on with them. They have an episode where Jon Stewart is on with them. Like it is fantastic 12 episodes, and it will crush my soul if they don't ever do any more. But Strike Force 5, you can find it on all your podcast things. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. You can also get one of these at the,
and you can go to the ssnetworkshop.com.
I'm going to come on your show and plug your show. How about that?
Hey, I'll take it, man. Jeff, it is, as always, a pleasure to hang out with you. We live in the same town. We hang out as much as we can. But thanks for being here on a Friday night. Thanks for bringing your insight, your thoughts, your whatever. And I raise my glass, and I'm going to polish off my whiskey to you, my friend. Cheers.
Chris, the DC movies suck, the newer ones. Okay, but that's I had to get that.
Wow, what a night. We went 1 hour and 26 minutes just with this dum-dum. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Wherever you are, if you catch this on the podcast feed, thanks for listening. I hope that it connected. I hope you had fun thinking about what your movies would be. At this point in the show, we would normally throw it to Chris to say, Chris, what does Broaxium have going on this week? And Chris isn't here, and I'm not sure what Broaxium has going on this week, so I'm not going to pretend. Let's say they're talking to Charles Soule and Ethan Sachs and some other comic book person whose name I can't come up with. That's what Broaxium's doing this week, or they're doing Quick Shots, or they're doing Shooting the Poodoo. Whatever it is, you know it's good because it's Broaxium, and those guys are the best. Around the galaxy, we are working on remixing a couple of older episodes, bringing something, putting a new spin on it, a little bit of an edit, getting it in front of you because we're still dealing with the strikes, and we have some opportunities to get some guests, and they've asked to wait until, the strikes are resolved so that they can talk about all the things they're doing and working on. So we want to honor that because we do support these creators who make the things that we enjoy so much. So not necessarily a brand new ATG on deck, but keep your eyes peeled. There's stuff going on. Potathon is starting to get geared up because we've got other stuff going on. Lots of things happening. Most of all, find us on social media, hang out with us, connect with us. And I can't say enough. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for allowing me and Pete and Chris to be a part of your Weird Space Friends family. We appreciate you. We love you. And we hope that you have a fantastic night and a great rest of your weekend. Cheers to you. And may the force be with you always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.